Okay. Okay, we are recording now and we are starting. If you remember last time, the last thing we were discussing, but before I go ahead, by the way, today we will finish this week's lecture. This is the second part. And if you like, we can meet tomorrow again for half an hour for a general discussion of what we have discussed, what we have analyzed so far. So tomorrow morning, shall we say 10 o'clock? Okay, I will send you the link. We'll send you the link. Tomorrow's class will be open. Okay? You tell me whatever you like about the black girl, about racism, about colonialism, etc., etc. We meet tomorrow. If you have questions, if you have comments, I'm sure you do have comments. I know most of you don't like to contribute our discussion because of language, because of English. I know English is your second language. It's my second language. But don't worry about that. We all make mistakes. I really want you to seriously look at the content of what we are discussing. I really want you to learn. I want you to learn. This is something that makes me feel comfortable. Know that my students are learning something. As you noticed, I mean, I never told you anything about, exams, etc. So we come tomorrow. Okay, you wanna ask something about the exams? Okay, it will take a couple of minutes to answer your questions, but that's not what I'm interested in. I'm interested in the knowledge you are gaining from this class. When you graduate, inshallah, when you go for an interview, or even when you have a discussion with people, it will say, okay, I've learned something. I know Osman Sambeni. I've read Ghassan Kanafani. Right? Knowledge. That's what we are interested in. And this is what Israel is fighting. Israel wants to colonize our mind, not only the land, colonizing the mind. And what I'm saying is that we need, as Palestinians, and I hope you are following what I'm saying, you are concentrating, we need to decolonize, liberate our mind. Clear? We need to decolonize our mind. And this is what we are discussing now about black girl. Black girl has a colonized mind. Why am I saying this? Because she's dreaming about visiting France, forgetting about her roots, her land, her homeland, Senegal. And this is why I say that she has a colonized mind. And what we are looking at now is the best ways of decolonizing her mind, exactly like many of us, Palestinians. And I'm glad I'm teaching Palestinian males and females. You need to be serious about this. First of all, you have to ask yourself this question. Do I have anything in common with Diwana? Diwana, at the beginning of the story, we are still at the beginning of the story, has a colonized mind. Do we have a colonized mind or decolonized mind? Free mind. If we have a colonized mind, how do we decolonize it? That is the question. Our education, ya Sabaya, ya Shabab, and I'm glad all of you are fourth year and third year students, so you understand what I'm saying. Our education is supposed to help decolonize our mind, correct? You go to Al-Aqsa University, you graduate this semester, this year, inshallah. After you graduate, do you still have the same mind? Is your mind decolonized? If not, why not? What does this tell me about the role of education? If it succeeds in decolonizing my mind, or if it fails, What does it tell me about it? What is the role of education in an occupied country, in a colonized country like Palestine? Can we find answers? Black Girl, the short story. Okay, open questions. Open questions. Okay, now we already know that she's dead. She slit her throat from the right ear to the left ear, which is very significant, as I said, which is very symbolic. Now, there's like a flashback. The narrator, the omniscient narrator, I have already told you what an omniscient narrator is. Omniscient narrator takes us back to the time when she was in Senegal. Okay, and she's working as I said, as a helper. They call her a maid. Others call her a servant. We need to be careful about our language. We need to be very, very careful, especially when we want, as I said, when we want to decolonize our mind, right? And inshallah, some of you next semester, if you take literary criticism with me, we will discuss the importance of discourse, language. All right, discourse means language and power together, language and power together. Okay, so now we have like a comparison here, comparison and contrast. The madam wants to take Diwana with her to France in order to work for her in France. And Diwana wants to go to France because she wants to become rich. For her, France is the dreamland. But is it? Is it the land of honey, as they say, and milk, of course, milk and honey? When she goes to France, she will find out that it is not. This is the reason why she slits her own throat. I don't know. We will see. But I'm talking about the imagined country she has in her mind. Very imaginary. Very lovely place. Beautiful. Land of freedom, as we said. Is it? On the other hand, the lady, the madam, wants to take her. She wants somebody to serve her. Let's read together. Let's look at the screen together. As for Madame, she was remembering the last few holidays she had spent in France. When she went to France, the lady. 3 of them. Who are they? Then she had only 2 children, herself 3. In Africa, Madame had acquired bad habits when it came to servants. Was it a maltreatment? She mistreated them? Okay, what kind of bad habits the madam had while in Africa? Notice when you want to go visit an African country, people tell you, oh, you are going to Africa. Africa is a continent. Africa is not a country. When you go to France, you don't say, I'm going to Europe, you say, I'm going to France. When you go to Canada, you don't say, I'm going to North America. You say, I'm going to Canada. But unfortunately, for Europeans and Westerners, Africa is like one block. Africa has about, I think, 52 countries. Egypt is in Africa, Congo is in Africa, South Africa is in Africa, Mozambique is in Africa, Senegal is in Africa. So which country? Well, that is a stereotype, racial, even racist stereotype. So in Africa in general, Madam had acquired bad habits when it came to servants. Okay, in France, when she hired the maid, not only was the salary higher, cheap in Africa. You get cheap servants, cheap labor. Is this why Israel sometimes employs Palestinian laborers? Yeah. Palestinian workers? Yeah. In France, when she hired a maid, not only was the salary higher, but the maid demanded a day off. She said, no, I have a day off, Saturday. And actually, no, Saturday and Sunday. So she would ask, sorry, not Saturday, she would ask for Sunday as a day off. That's her right. Labor right. In Africa, no rights. Rights whatsoever. This is why they like Africa. Madam had to let her go and hired another when she was in France because she didn't want to give a holiday and she wanted cheaper servants. The next one was no different from the first, if not worse, which means those servants in France demanded their rights. They asked for right. She answered Madam for that. Every time Madam would say something, the servant in France, African servant, but in France, would answer back. Because they want submissive, obedient servants. Anyone who is capable, she answered Madam tit for tat, anyone who is capable of having children should take a turn with them herself. I can't live in. I have my own children to take care of and husband too, she declared. Servant, maid in France. Okay. But not Diwana. Not Diwana in Senegal. No. And this is why she wanted to take Diwana from Senegal with her instead of hiring an African maid in France. I'm sure you understand now. Used to being waited on hand and foot. Okay, she wanted somebody to serve her. She wouldn't do anything, the madam. She expected the servant to do everything. Again, ya sabaya ya shabab, I want you to remember, this is a metaphor. Okay? This is a metaphor. The relationship between the madam and Diwana is a metaphor for the relationship between France as a colonial power and Senegal, Africa as the colonized world. Yeah? France, Africa. Colonizer, colonized. White, European, black African. Can I say this is something like Israelis and Palestinians? Sure. Yes. Absolutely, 100%. So used to being waited on hand and foot, Madam had yielded her wifely duties and clumsily fulfilled the role of mother. She didn't even want to become the mother of her children. She wanted the servant to take care of the children. But anyway, for a real vacation, she had hardly had any. She soon persuaded her husband to return to Africa. So when she was in France, she couldn't do anything. She wanted to hire a servant. The servants were not up to her standards. She had to look after her children. And then she couldn't bear it. She said, let's go back to Africa. Meaning, go back to Senegal. Senegal is an African country, one African country. Okay. On her return where? Africa, grown thin and thoroughly exasperated, she had conceived a plan for her next vacation. So in Africa, she started thinking about her next vacation when she goes back to France. So what was the plan? She put want ads, wanted ads you put. She put want ads in all the newspapers. 100 young girls answered. Of course, so many girls, African girls, are looking for jobs. So 100 young girls answered. Her choice fell. These 100 applicants The choice fell on Diwana. Why? Newly arrived from her native bush, which means she doesn't know how to answer back. She doesn't know her rights. She knows absolutely nothing. Pure, as we say. Pure. She knows nothing. And this is why Madam chose her. Very good servant, slave. Okay? Right. I want you to write the title of a movie I want you to watch. This is part of our course. The name, the title of the movie I want you to watch next week is called The Help. Write it down and watch it. Okay? You will like it. You will like it a lot. The Help. I don't know. I cannot find the chat session. I don't know why. I forgot how to find it. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. I'll write it now. Okay. Don't forget. The name, the title of the movie. Everyone, you see it? Tell me if you see it because I'm not sure.
Yes.
9. Okay. The Help. Okay. The Help. Watch it. This is part of your responsibility. Oh. Man, what happened? Can you still hear me? I got stuck. Hello? I can't hear you.
Yes, we hear.
You're breaking up. Oof, something happened.
Well,
Okay, but I can't see the text. Can you hear me?
yes, we can.
Okay, hold on for a second. I'll bring the text. Sorry, because it is stuck. It always happens in this class. I don't know why. And I don't want to turn it off. I'll bring the text and read directly from it. Just a second. Okay, are you still there?
Yes.
Man, okay, good. Okay, I'll read from the text directly because I don't know why it got stuck. I cannot move the screen from here. So I will just read from here. Okay. All right, we said her choice fell in Diwana, newly arrived from her native bush, producing 2 more children during the 3 years that Diwana worked for her. Between her last holiday and the one to come, Madame sang the praises of France. So she had 3 children, and she kept talking in front of Diwana about France, praising France, how beautiful France is, etc., etc. Of course, Diwana has never been to France. So this is important now. The France Diwana is having dreams about is the France Madame is telling her about. So she knows about France from the Madame's perspective. Okay? All right. Uthman, please unmute your phone and keep telling me that you can hear me. All right, I just want to make sure that you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear.
Okay, good. All right. Okay. All right. So for 3,000 francs a month, okay, pay attention to this. Of course, francs, that's French currency. For 3,000 francs a month, any young African girl would have followed her to the end of the earth. Okay? So the madam thought that she was paying more than enough. And she thought, in fact, that she was buying this African girl like a slave, right? Diwana accepted that. Or Diwana accepted that, which means Diwana, that stage, had a colonized mind, right? Is Diwana going to change? We will see. We will see. And to top it off, from time to time, especially lately, Madam would give Diwana little gifts of this and that. Madam would give her even gifts in addition to the 3,000 francs a month. Old clothes, shoes that could be mended, okay, which means old clothes, old shoes that could be mended that the madam didn't want to use anymore, right? And here we have this question of quality. Doesn't this show that they are unequal? It does. Okay. So the madam has old clothes she gives to Diwana. She pays her 3,000 francs. She gives her old shoes that could be mended. This metaphor for the relationship between France on the one hand, and Africa on the other? Yes, definitely. Definitely. That is a metaphor for colonialism. Relationship that has a colonial nature. No equality whatsoever. White colonizer, black colonized. European colonizer, African colonized. Okay? It was the insurmountable moat that separated the maid and her employer. Here, the employer, the European colonizer, and there, the poor African, the poor maid, the poor black girl. Okay? You can never bring them together. It is a relationship of power. The power of the colonizer. So what is the solution? Bring about equality and justice. Think about the land of sad oranges. This is comparative literature, don't forget. Think about us. Sometimes, ya sabaya, ya shabab, we need to get out of the text to see whether this text reflects reality or not. And I am interested in our reality. Does it reflect our reality? Do we see ourselves in it? Do we see the world that we live in reflected in the text itself? I want you to think about these questions. Okay, this was the insurmountable moat that separated the maid and her employer. Did you give Monsieur your identity card? You remember she had to pay money in order to issue an identity card. All her savings went to issue an identity card. Oui, madame. Yes, madame. You may go back to your work. Tell the cook to give the three of you a good meal. You remember we said that this French family had three African helpers, servants, the cook, an African man, a boy who helps them, and Diwana, the maid. Well, of course, you cannot have three servants in Europe. In fact, in most European countries nowadays, they don't have servants. Not because, of course, we don't call them servants. We call them domestic. Of course, helpers. Helper is the best word, but to be very professional, we call them domestic workers. Domestic workers. Tell the cook, give the three of you good meal. Merci, madame. He answered and went off the kitchen. Madame continued her inventory. Monsieur returned on the stroke of noon. The husband, his arrival announced by the barking of the dog. Of course, if you can't see this on the screen, you need to open your text, ya Sabaya, ya Shabab. Open your text. I've already sent it to you. Monsieur returned on the stroke of noon, his arrival announced by the barking of the dog. Getting out of his Peugeot 403, that's his car. The brand name of the car, Peugeot. Peugeot is a French car. Getting out of his Peugeot 403, he found his wife indefatigable. She never gets tired. She never gets tired. She's always busy. The wife, pencil in hand, registering items that she's going to take with her to France. All right, in her notebook, items of things she's going to take with her to France. You remember when the officer entered the villa of Green Happiness, what he saw? When Diwana committed suicide, he saw African items, African souvenirs, African masks. So she's taking, the lady, the madam is taking African souvenirs and Diwana. So Diwana is like a thing. Diwana becomes like an object, an African souvenir, something you own, property. Yeah? I think we have 10 minutes only left. All right. Tomorrow we are meeting at 10 o'clock. I will send you the link. Having the baggage men come yet? She said nervously. They'll be here at a quarter to 2. Our bags will be on top. That way they'll be out first when we land in Marseille. Of course, Marseille, a famous French city. What about Diwana? Diwana, the eldest of the children, ran to fetch her, fetch Diwana. She was under the trees with the little one, the little baby, the little boy. Hey, madam, it's Monsieur who was calling. That's fine. Here are your ticket and your identity card, which she paid for. She paid for the identity card. So they bought her a ticket, and the Monsieur brought her identity card. Diwana held out a hand to take them, to take identity card and the ticket. You keep the identity card, I'll take care of the ticket. The Duponts is the family name. Family name, not the family she's working for, by the way. The Duponts are returning on the same ship. They will look after you. So they know that she cannot look after herself. A black girl from Africa, on her first trip to France, she needs somebody to look after her. So they are giving her another French family that is leaving on the same ship from Senegal to France. Are you glad to be going to France? The monsieur is asking her, are you glad to be going to France? Oui, monsieur. Good. Where are your bags? True is Carafe, monsieur. That's the place where she lives in France. Obviously a neighborhood. True is Carafe, monsieur. After I've had lunch, we will go fetch your luggage, fetch your bags, them in the car. Okay. Bring the children in Diwana, it's time for their nap. Be madam. Diwana wasn't hungry. When when you are very excited, very, very happy. So some people, lose their appetite. So she wasn't hungry. The cook's helper, 2 years younger than she. Notice. So the cook had a helper. So now we have a boy and we have the cook. And we have the cook's helper. They're very cheap. Very cheap to find, cheap labor in Africa. The cook's helper, 2 years younger than she, brought the plates and took the empty ones away noiselessly. The cook was sweating heavily. He wasn't happy. The cook wasn't happy. Are you still there, Othman? Othman?
Yes, yes.
Okay, sure. Okay, good. Sorry, because I can't see the screen. That's why. Sorry. Okay, so he wasn't happy. The cook wasn't happy. Why wasn't he happy? Obviously, we'll see, but I think we will see whether we can prove this or not. He's losing his job because lady, the madam, her husband are leaving Senegal. So he's not happy. He was not happy. He was going to be out of work. He was going to be out of work. This was how the departure affected him, the departure of the family. Notice, again, I want you to pay attention to this. Every time we have a black person, an African, and a white person, this is always a metaphor for the relationship between the colonizer and the colonized. Right? Now, the cook is working because the colonizer is offering him a job. He's not free. At the same time, he's not free to find another job. Right? So it's like us working for Israelis. All right? Then I come and tell you, we must not work for Israel. Then I tell you, no, I will be jobless. I will be out of work. You know what I'm saying? It's like me saying to you, boycott Israeli products. Boycott, muqata. And then I said, well, where can I find tapuzina? I love tapuzina, so I have to drink tapuzina. You see, I cannot live without drinking tapuzina. Seriously. You cannot live without drinking tapuzina. You cannot live without buying it Nova, knowing very well that you are paying for the bullet that is going to be used when Israelis shoot you. When the Israelis killed Razan and Najjar, they used the bullets that some of us pay for. And then we come and say we cannot live without them. Now, this is what the colonizer, this is the impression, the belief the colonizer wants to implant in our head. That is the colonization of the mind. That is the colonization of the mind. So in order to decolonize our land, to liberate the land, liberate Africa, first of all, we have to decolonize this. We have to decolonize the mind. Okay? Let's see here. The cook is not happy. Okay, why? Of course, naturally, he was going to be out of work. This was how the departure affected him, the departure of the family. For this reason, he was a bit resentful of the maid. Resentful of the maid, which means he was jealous of, who's the maid? Diwana. He didn't like that she was not losing her job like him. That she was going to France. He was envious. He was resentful of the maid. Clear? So notice again another metaphor. The colonizer always uses the policy of stick and carrot, العصا والجزرة. Another policy, pay attention to what I am saying, and I hope that you are paying attention. Stick and carrot, okay? The other policy is, like here in Palestine, divide and rule. This is the metaphor we are dealing with this. Divide and rule. Think about Palestinians, okay? But the Hamas, etc., right? Divide and rule. Correct? I'm sure you understand what I'm saying. So now here, the cook is resentful of the maid, of Diwana, of course. Leaning out the wide window overlooking the sea, transported, Diwana watched the birds flying high above the immense expanse of blue. She's looking at the sky, the birds. Of course, the birds, most of the time, in most literature, flying birds stand for freedom. If you don't know, I know some of you are interested. There is a very famous song, listen to it, you will like it, called I Believe I Can Fly. Okay, I believe I can fly, which means getting my freedom. Right? And here what she sees flying birds. The distance, what did she see? She could, in the distance, she could barely make out the island of Gore. Remember last time when I told you about the last piece of land, slaves who were sent to America, the last piece of land of Africa they saw was the island of Gore. Clear? It was the island of Gore. So it is significant that she was looking, they say, from the window, and in this distance, she could barely make out the island of Gore. The island of Gore,